So on Killer Flicks on Facebook, our theme of the week this week is dolls, which is a theme that I really enjoy, and I wanted to, for a while, get this one to be the one for the week, and it's been in like the list of ones that people vote for, but it's taken a while for it to actually come to fruition, to actually become a choice. But this is a fun genre because dolls to me in horror is something that I've always enjoyed, because as a kid I was terrified of anything with dolls, like in horror. I was scared of like Night of the Living Dummy, I was scared of Chucky, I was scared of all of these things that are doll related in horror. And I really like, I already talked about the Child's Play films on this channel already, so it's too late for that, which is fine because I just had a hankering to watch them like a while ago. So instead of that, I'm going to talk about Magic, starring Anthony Hopkins and Ann-Margret, and also Burgess Meredith. And this movie is really, I think, underrated, I guess is the word I can use, because this movie it never gets talked about, and it's one that, in terms of performances, this this is Anthony Hopkins before he became Hannibal Lecter, and in terms of a film where this character is going crazy, like, it's not the same like role as Hannibal Lecter or the same kind of acting as Hannibal Lecter, but his performance in this is one to be noted because this really shows so much range that Anthony Hopkins can do. He is genuinely scary in this, and he really works in his at his. I don't know if this is like one of his first movies. I bet it's been like, he did a lot of movies before this, but this is not, probably not far into all the roles he has started as an actor. And I thought that in this movie he was really fantastic, and he did a great job having this multiple personality where he literally like talks with the doll, talks to himself, the way that he acts towards everybody else, his reaction to things, like, it seems so well done, and just how he perceives being this mentally disturbed person, and it really is incredible, and I really enjoy his performance in this. And Ann-Margret, who I think is great as well, is so incredibly likable here. She really just sells this character, Peg, who is Corky's love interest, and they really work off each other incredibly well. Like, their romance in the movie, I think, is really underrated as well, because it's not something that people would talk about, I think, but this movie isn't talked about anyways, but I think that their romance is really good. And Burgess Meredith from the Rocky films, he's Mickey from Rocky, he is great in this movie too. Like, he plays this business tycoon who's trying to get Corky to be on TV, but he gets more than he bargains for when he realizes how insane Corky is. And just in terms of those three actors, and there's basically like four actors at most that are in this for more than a couple minutes. Those three and the guy who plays Duke, they're pretty much just the only actors in this movie. There are other people in the movie, but they're only in it for like a scene or a line. But these four actors are the only ones in it. And I like how this movie is so self-contained, and in terms of like, it works with the performances too, because there's not many actors like in the movie much at all. It's just a core four, or I guess you could argue a core three, because one character is in it for a tiny bit, but then he's gone quickly. But this movie just is great with the actors. The actors in this, I think, are really strong in their performances. Like, this is one that needs to be talked about more. I genuinely think this movie's awesome. And also it's directed by Richard Attenborough, who is Hammond from Jurassic Park. And I have not seen any of his other films, I think, looking on his IMDb. I know he directed Gandhi. I think he directed that, and I have not seen that either. He directed a lot of movies in the 70s, it looked like, and they got pretty good reviews, it looked like, so I need to watch more of his movies. But I like the fact that Hammond is the director of this movie, Hammond from Jurassic Park. That's just a funny little note. And he does great here. The directing is really great. How the performances are perceived are great, and I think that Richard Attenborough does a great job with tension and building up this movie, because this movie is actually really, it's thrilling when it has to be, and it's really like emotional when it has to be too, in terms of the romance. Like, it works really well on all those levels. And I like how the movie starts with Corky, and he's got this entertainer named Merlin, who's only in like a scene, in the opening scene. And Merlin is this entertainer, which we don't get much about him, and I don't know if it's on purpose to make us question Corky and his disturbing, like, multiple personalities. I wonder if that's the reason why they didn't explain Merlin much, but I like how his name is Merlin Wizard. I think that's just a funny name for him, and I feel like there's a reason behind that, but the movie is so vague, and that's totally fine because the vagueness works, but it feels very vague for this character, and I think that it works really well for that Merlin guy, even though he's in one scene. But I like how the first scene completely gives us everything we need to know about Corky and how he is. It gives a good reason to why he becomes so messed up. Like, you hear dialogue in the current moment where, like, Merlin is talking to Corky like, you knock him dead, kid. Did you actually go and everybody laugh at your jokes, like he's doing stand-up? And Corky said, yeah, they did. They loved me. They all were entertained. And then you see, like, actual footage while they're talking in the current time, and it's to where Corky is literally lying to Merlin and how he fails and everybody is not laughing at him, but nobody's paying attention to him. And then Corky loses it and screams at him and says, like, I've spent like 100 hours of my life doing this, like, why won't you people listen to me? Like, he screams to this whole audience. And I love how Merlin immediately says that that don't bullshit me, kid. Like, he already knows that he was lying to him and he didn't actually knock him dead. He actually, like, got furious and screamed at him, which shows the mental state that he's in. And I like that it shows how angry he gets. So even before Fats the Dummy is introduced, it works for this character, and it makes you have a feeling already that something is up with him. I really love that. I really love how it's very subtle. It's very subtle how it opens with that. And I really liked how right after the scene, time passes to like a year later, and Merlin is just dead. And that's all they say. They don't say anything about Merlin besides that, and I thought that was interesting, that he's only in the movie for one scene, but I think the scene is purposefully done just to show Corky's mental state and just how messed up he is, and I think that it does a great job of that in the opening scene, showing the back and forth with the scene of him doing stand-up while he's lying to Merlin. I think that's really a cool, like, back and forth, like, at once. That's just a really cool way of filmmaking, showing both of those scenes happening at the same time. And then it goes, like I said, 1 year later to where we get introduced to Corky again doing stand-up, but it's a year later, and he's actually become famous. He's become, or not famous, I guess he's become famous in that location because everybody comes and sees him and enjoys all his jokes and laughs at him. And then you realize, with Burgess Meredith's character, it's a hard name to say, his character Ben, whenever he brings another guy in, who's David Ogden Stiers, which is a funny little cameo. Like, I liked how he was in it for a scene, but him and David Ogden Stiers are having a talk about trying to get Corky on TV, and David Ogden Stiers' character is watching Corky like, this guy isn't anything special. And then Ben's just saying, you wait. And then you see Corky he's talking on the stage, and then somebody in his voice is screaming to him in the audience. And then he goes out there and talks to him, and then he brings up the dummy, Fats the Dummy, which I think is one of the most terrifying looking ventriloquist dummies ever. Like, look at this. Isn't that terrifying? Like, just how this puppet looks. Like, this dummy just is incredibly, like, I don't want to say realistic, but it's incredibly, like, it looks so incredible in how he moves, how he talks. It looks so close to Anthony Hopkins, and I read online on IMDb on the trivia that Anthony Hopkins apparently got so scared one night of this ventriloquist dummy and threatened, I think, Richard Attenborough that he would throw it into a canyon. because he was so literally scared of this thing, and I like that. And I wonder if this thing is still like somewhere in the world, this ventriloquist dummy, because that would be interesting to see, because this thing is creepy as hell. It really works in just how disturbingly real looking this thing looks. It really is great. But then I get back to the scene where Corky and Fats are talking to each other now, and you see what Corky's like shtick is, where like he goes and he's talking to the ventriloquist dummy, the Fats will insult him, they'll both insult each other, but then you realize that it's more than that, and that Fats is basically in a way controlling Corky, even though I think it's a split personality, but the movie never directly states that the dummy might be alive, or it's either that or Corky has a split personality, and I think that's really cool that we never get the full answer. And that's why I brought up the name Merlin, because Merlin sounds like a wizard name. Like, what if this guy had a magic dummy that actually talked and was alive and actually possessed Corky in a way? But the movie never gives us an answer, but that makes it all the more creepier. That actually works incredibly well, because you never get the full understanding of what this dummy is. Like, is it alive, or is it just Corky's personality? Or is the dummy actually manifesting its personality onto Corky? Like, I love how it works with so much ambiguity to it. That's really cool. And so you see how Fats is kind of controlling him in a way, whether it's his personality or the doll's alive. But I like how Ben Green really wants Corky to be on TV. Like, he's trying to get him there, but then he says, like, you need to go and take a mental health test, like, because you have to. It's a law. You got to go before you go on TV. And then this makes Corky really upset and leaves, because Corky doesn't say this, but he knows in his head that, like, he's not going to pass this, because he's literally using, like, he has a split personality with this doll, with this dummy. And I think that it's great. It's great to have that, to where Corky doesn't want to take the mental health test, because he knows he's going to fail it. He knows that they're going to realize he's crazy. He's going to be taken. And then that works with Fats later whenever he speaks to him. Like, they're going to throw you in the loony bin if you go and take that test. Like, I really think that it works just on a fantastic level of having this dummy talk back to him and tell him, like, they're going to think you're crazy. We're both crazy. Like, I really think that it just works so well. And then that sets up to where Corky runs away. Like, he runs away because he's so afraid of, like, this test, that because he knows he's going to fail it. So he runs away, and he runs to find his old love, Peg, who, like I said at the beginning, and Margaret in this movie, is incredibly likable, incredibly sincere, and just incredibly beautiful. Like, she just gives off such a great radiance in this movie. Such a likable personality, and I think that the thing I like between her and Corky is that Corky does show signs of mental, like, issues with her, but not as strongly as, like, Ben Green has seen. But the way that he is angry towards her, I like that she works it out to where she doesn't freak out. She just tries to find a way to calm him down. And I thought that made a good reasoning to have them both, like, connect together. Like, I thought that was really cool. And she is just incredible in this movie. And Margaret, I just loved her so much. All her lines seem just so genuine, because she seems like such a genuinely sweet person in this movie. And the movies I've seen her in, I think she's great in. So I really think that she just knocks it out of the park in this movie. And their romance is something that I really love. And I don't really care much for romance in a lot of movies, because I feel like it's fake. And I feel like this one, with both of the personalities, and because of the mental issues with Corky, it makes it way more interesting. It makes it the characters way more likable in a way. So I really think that it works for a romantic angle in this movie. They seem very genuine. It's a very genuine, like, romance. They feel like they have great chemistry. And I really think whenever they finally have that sex scene, this works incredibly well with the romance and the horror. And the tagline, I think the tagline says, like, is like a terrifying love story, which they're not lying. Like that is a big part of this movie, and I love how it connects the horror and the romance. And this scene alone, the sex scene, works incredibly well in terms of the horror and the romance, because you have the scenes where Corky and Peg are having sex, and then you cut. It keeps cutting with the harmonica music, which is creepy too, to Fats with the harmonica music playing. It keeps cutting it away to it with the romantic music, then to the harmonica music, to both them having sex, then to Fats, and Fats just making this creepy look like either, like I said, either it's his split personality or the doll's alive, and the movie does it so well where you see both sides of where it could be the doll's alive or he's just got split personality. It doesn't ever like give one definitive answer, and like I said, that just works incredibly well in the sex scene. When it cuts from them having sex to just seeing Fats sitting there with a creepy look, that's one of the best moments in the movie in terms of like filmmaking, and how it keeps cutting back and forth to both of these tones, and it works really well because you can tell how it's going to affect this romance with the horror. I really, really love that about this movie. And I like how after this Corky is here with Peg still, and then Ben Green appears, who Corky told like the taxi guy like not to tell anybody where he was. He gave him extra money. And then Ben Green, I don't know how Ben Green found him, but he found him here where Peg is. And then Ben Green like already knew there was something up with Corky, but then he realizes just how far off the deep end Corky is with this doll. And the scene whenever he figures it out is great, because then Ben says to Corky like, just have Fats shut up for 5 minutes, don't have him speak. And then it's literally 5 minutes of the movie, which is awesome, where like Corky's just sitting there. Ben told him not to have Fats say anything. He waits for like 5 minutes, and then every like 30 seconds or a minute, Corky will go, oh, is it time yet? And then Ben just says like, no, minute 30, minute 45, 2 minutes, like that. And that just is great because it shows how disturbed like Corky is, and he's waiting to have him talk back, have Fats talk again. That's awesome. That's such a great scene. And then I liked how Ben just completely realizes that he's off the deep end, because after the 5 minutes are over, Fats talks really, really fast. Like keeps talking and talking and talking, because he wanted to make him talk as long as he waited, probably. Corky did. And then Ben leaves, and then Fats tells him, like, you gotta get him, you gotta use me to kill him, like, kill him. And then Corky goes and, like, smashes Fats on Ben to, like, knock him out. And then Fats tells him to go throw him in the river, or in the lake. And then they go out there, and then Ben wakes up, because he's just knocked out, because the dummy hit him in the head. And then Corky finally, like, literally kills him and drowns, or throws his body down into the lake. And I like how that's good done for the moment with the Ben part, but it comes back. And then after this, Duke comes back, which is Peg's husband, who Peg can't stand. Like, they've never really truly been in love, and she's wanting to get away from him. He's from the scene with them two together alone, it seems like he's abusive. It seems like he's a dick. But he also drinks a lot, so maybe that's the reason why. But I like that it shows that even though Corky is mentally disturbed, I liked him more than Duke, because Duke is this drunk, like, abuser. Or maybe presumably an abuser. He didn't actually do much, but he, like, knocked her down, and he told her, like, don't talk to me like that, like, stuff like that. So, but Duke also was smart enough to know that they'd had sex with each other, so it kind of made sense on both characters' behalves. But I really liked that Duke was this quote-unquote not really unlikable character, but he had a lot of reasonings to have him be killed in the movie, because even though I don't warrant killing, but, like, in a movie like this, I like how he dies, because he does have a lot of things wrong with him, and and the mix between Corky's personality and then using Fats, it's like it messes up in his head, like he's just gonna go kill him too. And the build up to him doing these things is really great because it doesn't just go, oh, he's gonna kill him. It like has Fats talk to him, tell him, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, or this will happen. And it really just shows how incredible this movie does show with this mental state of this character. And whenever Duke gets it, he has a great moment because it's whenever Duke finds, after they find Ben in the water, Duke goes into the cabin that Corky stays in and finds all Duke's belongings, like his wallet and his keys and all that. And then he realizes it and then turns around and there's Fats the Dummy just sitting there, and then Duke gets close enough to him and then Fats stabs him a couple times, but Fats makes a look on his face that's a face that I don't think a regular dummy can make. Like the way he moved his mouth, and I know it said on the trivia online that it purposely was like that, implying that he might be alive, but like I said, the movie does so many times where it feels like he is, but then he isn't, which is just, again, great ambiguity. But that's the scariest scene in the movie, whenever Duke goes in, finds Ben's belongings, turns around, goes up to Fats, then Fats stabs him and makes that demented look. Like, that is scary. And then I like how Fats falls over, and then behind the curtain is Corky. So it plays in between, did he do it, or did the doll do it? Like, again, this just such a great job of, like, being so ambiguous with, like, how this, if this is the doll or him, or whatever. I really think that that's great. The build up to his death is great. And then I think that by the end, like, Corky still loves Peg to death, and I like how Fats is becoming so much more of a like person who, like, he's taking over Corky in a way, and he literally is saying, like, you gotta get her now, you gotta get Peg. And I like how Corky is so strongly in love with her that he doesn't want to do it, and I liked how whenever it does a good job of building it up to where Peg's in a room with the door locked. A voice is outside, it sounds like Fats, and then you see outside, like, there's a little rock heart that's made of rock, like it's shaped like a heart now, like he carved it out. And then you realize that it's just Corky instead of Fats, but then you realize that Corky stabbed himself because he loved Peg so much he didn't want to kill her. And I love that character moment, because he stabs himself because he didn't want to hurt her. He loved her that much. And even though he is in such a mental state, I love how he sacrificed himself for his love. I think that's really awesome. And I like how Peg goes outside and is gonna leave, but then she changes her mind, and then the way that Cork is dying and Fats is talking to him at the same time, and they both feel the pain, like they're both dying from this wound. It's just such a cool way, like I said, of being so ambiguous. Like, is his personality this way, or is it the doll being alive? Because the doll doesn't feel this either. Like, the dummy doesn't feel this being stabbed. I really thought that it just was great, and then their goodbye at the end was great, because Fats is like, I don't feel so good, and then they're like, is this what death feels like, or something like that, and then they both die, in a way. And then Peg has the heart with her, and she goes up, like, she's walking back to the cabin after he died, and she says, like, Cork, I forgive you, blah blah blah, and then, like, she talks in a voice similar to Fats, and then she throws the heart rock up in the air, and then it pauses on that, and the credits roll. And to me, I'm thinking, this movie was already fantastic at being ambiguous with everything, but it's very ambiguous at the ending, because you don't see what Peg sees. You don't see her go into the house to find Corky and Fats dead, and she talks in a Fats voice. So I'm like, I don't think that she would go crazy, but they said the voice for some reason. Then she said the voice for a reason. I think that this movie just overall just is really incredibly fantastic on just characters. Like, this movie does a great job of building up all of these characters. Corky is definitely the main character, but like Peg has such a great story to her, and she's such a likable presence. And then Burgess Meredith is a great presence, and then Duke is a person that's unlikable, but I like the guy's performance who played him. Like, he played this really like raw, dickish character, and I really liked all of these four actors. And this movie just did a fantastic job with characters and with acting and with building up this mental state that Corky is in with Fats. And like I said, it's so ambiguous to if the doll's alive or if he's just imagining it. But overall, this is just incredible, and just, it's a very slow-moving movie, so I feel like a lot of people, and it's only got like 2 kills, so I feel like a lot of people who are going into this thinking this will be a slasher, it's not that, it's definitely not that, but it's fine with me, because this is a great character movie, with a few incredibly tense moments. It reminds me of Psycho, where like, there's literally only 2 kills, and the movie is literally, basically the whole movie is just building up to these couple of moments. It's not the whole movie is scary, it's just they're building up to these good moments because of these characters that you grow to like. Even Corky has all these issues, like he's so likable too. I really loved all these characters. They just all work so well. But like I said, this is a very slow movie. A lot of people might not like it, but I love it. I think that it just takes its time in a fantastic way, builds up these characters fantastically. The scary moments are really scary. The doll is one of the most, or the dummy is one of the most unforgettable looking dummies ever. It is terrifying looking. I really love this movie, and this is like my 3rd or 4th rewatch, and it still has not gotten old. So I really enjoyed talking about this movie. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.